The diagram shows a human sperm cell. Human sperm cell consists of three parts. Number one, head, and number two is the neck region, and number three is tail region. So head region contains acrosome, where hydrolytic enzymes are present to digest the outer wall of the egg cell to penetrate into the cytoplasm of egg cell. Second is nucleus, which is haploid, and half set of chromosome are present. Why? Because sperm cell is a gamete, and gamete contain half set of the chromosome. So that's why the nucleus is for fertilization. Second, we have middle piece, that is neck region, which contain a lot of mitochondria, which provide energy for swimming movement to chromosome to move from cervix to the oviduct for fertilization. Third part is the tail region, which provide propulsion and movement. So first question is, what is the maximum number of X chromosome found in the nucleus of sperm cell? So the sperm cell is a gamete cell, so which contain half set of chromosome. So in a human cell, there is 22 pair of chromosome, which are autosomes, which give information for body structure. What about 23rd pair of chromosome, that is sex chromosome, which is either X and Y. What about the sperm cell contain one chromosome from the sex pair of chromosome, either it is X or either Y. So what is the maximum number of X chromosome? It can be 0, that is the minimum number, and it can be 1, that is maximum number here. So B is our correct answer for this question. Now, second question, the middle piece of the sperm cell contains mitochondria. Explain the function of these mitochondria. So mitochondria provide energy in the form of ATP for the movement of sperm to move from cervix to the oviduct for fertilizations. So here we have two keywords. One, mitochondria provide energy, and the second is for the movement of sperm toward the egg for fertilizations. So these are two keywords you're supposed to put, and you can use your own word. Second, the acrosome contains digestive enzyme. Suggest the function of acrosome. So acrosome basically that contain hydrolytic enzyme, and these hydrolytic enzyme need to digest the outer membrane of egg cell. So we can describe the acrosome break down the egg cell membrane by digestive enzyme, which allow the sperm nucleus to penetrate the egg for fertilization with the egg nucleus. So here we have two keywords. Number one, it digests the outer membrane of egg cell, and number two, for penetration for fertilizations. So it helps the nucleus to penetrate in the cytoplasm of egg cell for fertilization. Describe the route taken by sperm cell from when it enters the woman body to the site of fertilization of egg cell. So in this question, you need to explain the correct route, number one, and you need to describe, you need to give the name of the correct different parts. So that consists of 2 marks. For example, the name are, first, the sperms are deposited in vagina at the base of cervix. So sperm move from cervix to the uterus, and from uterus to oviduct. So correct direction and correct terminology will secure for you the 2 marks. Those sperms are deposited in vagina at the base of cervix. So sperm cell move from cervix to the uterus, and finally they reach to the oviduct for fertilizations. So we're going to move to the next question. The next question is related to the ecology. The diagram shows a food chain from a lake. So in this food chain, the base is microscopic plant, which is producer, and small fish, that is the primary consumer, or we can say herbivore or primary consumer. So a large fish, that is the secondary consumer or carnivore, and the bird is a tertiary consumer. So here, the energy is moving from producer toward the tertiary consumer. So energy always decrease because the old part of the organism are not eaten to the next trophic level, and the most of the energy is lost in the respiration or daily life activity. So these type of question might possible. So the first question, name the primary consumer in this food chain. So the primary consumer is the first level, that's who is directly eating food on producer, that is primary consumer. So small fish is a primary consumer in this food chain, and primary consumer is also called herbivore. The microscopic plant convert the light energy into chemical energy. This process called photosynthesis. Describe the process that convert the light energy into a chemical energy. So basically, in this question, examiner asking to describe the process of photosynthesis. So in the process of photosynthesis, so carbon dioxide combined with the water in the presence of sunlight and chlorophyll to produce the glucose and oxygen. So here we have raw material, carbon dioxide and water, while the product is glucose and oxygen. So the reagent in this process, that's the chlorophyll and sunlight. So we can describe the green pigment chlorophyll in the plant absorb the sunlight in the presence of in photosynthesis. So and in photosynthesis, the plant use light energy to produce glucose by combining carbon dioxide and water. So here, the one keyword is carbon dioxide plus water. That's your one keyword. Second keyword, you need to describe the reagent, like the chlorophyll absorbs sunlight, and it uses energy to combine carbon dioxide and water to produce glucose and oxygen. So if you have time, it will be better you can write the word equation for this answer, so that will secure your marks. Give two reasons why some of the energy in microscopic plant is not transferred to the small fish. So we can see why some energy like this is in a microscopic plant, 100% energy, which is present in the microscopic plant, is not transferred to the small fish. So only 10% energy will transfer from microscopic plant to the small fish. So the reason is what? Because the 90% energy is lost in metabolism, in growth, in daily life activity, and in the form of heat. While all part of the microscopic plant are not eaten by the small fish. So that's why the energy, only 10% energy transfers to the next trophic level. So you can write any 2 points from here. So energy lost by plants in the form of heat that's produced by respirations. Some of the undigested part of the plant are not absorbed in a small fish. So, or we can write uneaten part of the plant decomposition in the environment. For example, the primary consumer or herbivore are not eating the root of the plant, or they're not eating the trunk of the plant. So in this way, the carnivore are not eating the bones of the animal, or they're not eating the skin of the animal. So that's why most of energy stay in the body of the previous trophic level. So you can write here 2 points to secure 2 marks. The birds do not have teeth. The fish they eat is initially crushed in the part of their digestive system called gizzard. Suggest why the crushing the fish in the gizzard helps the bird to digest the fish. So here, this question is related to the human digestive system, or enzymes. So here we need to describe if the size is decreasing, so surface area to the volume ratio is increasing. So if there's a more surface area, more enzyme can work on the object and they can easily digest the food. So small solid particle in gizzard mechanically digest the food and increase the surface area. So here there's one keyword is increase surface area, which is suitable for chemical digestion by enzyme. So enzyme can easily work on large surface area and easily digest it. So that's why we are chewing the food and we are breaking down the food into the small pieces. Why? Because if we properly chew the food, so food will be easily digested in the digestive system. The next question is regarding circulatory system. The diagram shows human circulatory system with some blood vessel labeled A to J. The arrow show the directions of the blood flow. So here we have human circulatory system. And in this human circulatory system, you can see we have first the A is our pulmonary vein, and this pulmonary vein is coming from lungs to the heart, left atrium, and that contain oxygenated blood. So highest concentration of oxygen is present in pulmonary vein. Second, we have aorta. So that's the blood from heart is moving to the whole body through aorta. And this aorta contains oxygenated blood. And this aorta further divide into a different artery, which supply the blood to the different organ in human body. The first organ is coming liver, that is called hepatic artery. And second is our digestive system or our gut tract. And this is the artery. There are two arteries who providing blood. That is mesenteric artery or celiac artery. And the third artery, which is going toward the kidney, this is renal artery. And the artery which is moving to the lower body parts, that is femoral artery. What about from kidney? So that's the vein which is going away, that is the renal vein, and the blood which absorb the food, it will move to the liver, and this contain hepatic portal system. And it's making hepatic portal vein system, and this system transfer the old food which is absorbed from the digestive system to the liver. And from liver, it's moving away, hepatic vein. So vein contain deoxygenated blood, and the largest vein is vena cava. This vena cava contain lowest concentration of oxygen, while high concentration of carbon dioxide. While the pulmonary artery contain, that's the J, that's a pulmonary artery. That's only one artery in our body which contain the deoxygenated blood. That's why it's going toward the lungs for oxygenations. So here, examiner can also ask you a question related to their labeling and their functions. We're going to proceed to the first question here. So the table give the some of the statement about the content of the blood vessels. So you can see first, they contain the least common dioxide. So which artery or which blood vessel contain least common dioxide, or it contain highest concentration of oxygen, and that is our pulmonary vein. So this pulmonary vein is recently coming from the lungs, and so that's why this contain the least concentration of carbon dioxide and highest concentration of oxygen. Next, we have which contain the most glucose after the meal. So obviously, the blood vessel which is absorbing the glucose and amino acid from food tract, that is coming from the gut. So this is making hepatic portal system. So that's the vein that's containing hepatic portal system. This is G. And next we have that contain the least oxygen. So blood vessels which contain least oxygen. So that's our what we can write. So which is coming from heart toward the lungs. So that contain lowest oxygen. So that is our J, pulmonary artery. What about other? We can also write like that's the vena cava. So that's also contain low concentration of the oxygen, but that's most suitable will be J here. So that contain the least urea. So obviously the kidney is responsible to remove urea. So the E is the part which contains highest concentration of the urea. Why? Because it's moving toward the kidney, while F is the part which contains, that's the renal vein, which contains lowest concentration of the urea. So last question is, which contain the blood at highest pressure? So blood which is coming out from the heart, that is the highest pressure. So aorta is the largest artery which is present in our body, and this largest artery coming from thickest part of the heart, that is left ventricle. So this left ventricle is a more muscular and the thickest wall containing heart part. So that's why it is producing highest pressure. So B will be our correct answer. That is aorta. We're going to move to the next question. State the two ways in which the structure of the blood vessel A differ from the structure of the blood vessel J. So you can see the blood vessel A is our pulmonary vein, while the J is pulmonary artery. So pulmonary artery is coming from lungs, so it has low blood pressure. So that's why it contains thin wall and it contains wide lumen. So the pulmonary vein, sorry, that's our pulmonary vein here. That's a pulmonary vein. A is pulmonary vein. It's coming from lungs. So if it is coming from lungs, so this will contain low pressure. So that's why it contains thin wall and it contains wide lumen. So pulmonary vein, because it is vein, so that the vein has thin wall and the vein has the large lumen due to low pressure. So easily there will be less resistance, so easily the blood flow from lungs to the heart. So we're going to see that the answers are a blood vessel has thin wall due to the less muscle and have wide lumen. So these are two keywords you can put in your answer. So muscle in the leg contain capillaries. So the scientist investigates how long-term training affect the number of the capillary in athletes' leg muscles. So scientists determine that the mean number of the capillaries per millimeter square in the sample of the leg muscle from the athletes before and after the period of training. So the table show that's the data, and in this data you can see. So the muscle sample before the training, this is what 313 millimeters scale, while after training 349. That's millimeter scale. So scientists conduct that training, improve the athlete's performance. So now discuss these conclusions. So first, we need to use the results which are given there in the table, and we need to describe our conclusions regarding that. So in this answer, you need to first describe whatever the results are given of this experiment, number one. You need to give a reason for that. That's number two. And you need to give the different improvement strategies, number three. Then you can secure the 100% marks in this type of question. So discuss the conclusion. So in this way, first we are discussing. So you can see before the training, and the number of the capillaries, 313. So what about in a 1 millimeter square area? So after the training, the number of the capillaries increased 349. So we need to describe first, so the data in the table. So after training, the number of the capillary increase, which increase the blood supply to the muscle, and with the high oxygen and glucose. So that's the statement. We are describing what is the given data, and we are also explaining the reason of that. Now, high oxygen and glucose increase rate of aerobic respirations, which produce more ATP energy for muscles. So in that way, second advantage, if there is a high oxygen supply in the muscle, so that will reduce the lactic acid production, which produce in the result of anaerobic respiration in the muscle. So that can secure easily the 4 marks. And for 5th mark, we're going to proceed to the next part here, and that is the experiment still have the room for improvement. Like we need to consider of other factor which can affect the athlete's muscle. For example, performance like muscle performance can be affected by age or by lungs capacity or by heart rate. So we should also consider this factor, and more than one person should be tested to improve the validity of the results. So if you're going to take off the different age of the people, and if you're going to take, if you increase the number of the people here, so that result will be more valid and that will be more applicable to the wide range of the people. So here in this answer, first you're right describing the result, and then you're writing the reason for that. And then the third part, you are writing improvement plan. So whenever this type of questions come, discuss this conclusions of the experiment. So you need to first give the evidences from the data and then give a reason for that, and also give the improvement or precautions for that questions. Here we have completed, and we're going to proceed to the next question. The table gives some example of biological process. Complete the table to give the name of each process. So first one has been done for you. So example of the process are given there and name of the process. You need to suggest that. For example, the plant with the short growing, the reason survive droughts. If the plant can easily survive the drought and adjust it to the given environment by the selections pressure, so that is natural selections. The next, the growth of algae in the river polluted by fertilizer. So if there's a high number of fertilizer, so the algal growth will increase, and this cause the eutrophications. So when the algae will cover all surface area of the water, no sunlight can penetrate, and aquatic plant will die. And the bacteria will increase, they will consume all oxygen in the water, and in this way, the aquatic animal will die. So this will destroy the ecosystem of the water, and this is called eutrophication. The pollen transferred from one plant to another plant by an insect. So this is the insect pollinations. So sunflower, they depend on the insect pollination. So that's one, that will be our insect pollinations. Absorption of nitrate ion from the soil using ATP energy. So root here that contain a lot of mitochondria which absorb the nitrate and magnesium by using of ATP energy, that is active transport. So you need to identify the correct terminology for this process. Or sometimes it's possible the examiner can give you this process and you need to describe this process in your answer. The next question is, the zinc is a poisonous to many plants and can affect the natural selections. So scientists investigated the ability of one grass species to survive at a different distance from the zinc mine. Now scientists uses the sampling method to measure the percentage cover of this grass species at the different distance from the zinc mine. So we can see if the distance from the zinc mine is increasing, so percentage of overall the growth rate is decreasing. So why it's decreasing? Because if the distance is increasing from the zinc mine, so concentration of the zinc is decreasing. So the poisonous effect of the zinc is also decreasing. So in that way, the percentage of poison is also decreasing. What about this grass is adjusted with this poison? It is producing certain type of enzyme which can break down the poison, and they are protected by the effect. They are protected from the effect of this poison. But if the distance is increasing, so other type of plants are increasing. So in that way, the competition of this grass with other plant is also increasing. So that's why due to the high competition, you can see if the distance is increasing, so the grass plant, which is adjusted with the zinc poisonous effect, that is declining. So its percentage cover or its percentage in population is decreasing. We're going to see the question here. First question, the zinc concentration in the soil is higher near the zinc mine than in the further from the zinc mine. So explain how the natural selections could be responsible for the result shown in the graph in between 0 to the 100. For example, we get to see that in the graph from the 0 to the 100, so there's no difference. 100% the population of the grass is covering the surface area, mean this grass is adjusted with this the zinc pollutions. So now question is, explain why, how the natural selection work. So you need to explain here how this plant is got adjusted of zinc poison. So the grass plant produce allele to reduce poisonous effect of zinc by random mutations. So in the result of random mutation, first, the grass plant produce certain type of allele. Now this allele is producing enzyme which break down the poison produced by zinc or poisonous effect of the zinc. So that's why it is advantageous character. So the second point we can write, the advantageous allele gave advantage to the grass plant up to more survival because it can survive in the presence of poison. So this is your second point. And the third point, it can reproduce more as compared to the other plant. And then fourth point, then it will transfer that advantageous allele to the next generation. Why? Because all plant will die in this region, while only this plant will survive in that region. So that way, if you want to secure full marks in this question, so main keyword are that the plant produce the allele by random mutation, which is an advantageous allele. So this advantageous allele is more adjusted to the environment, and that's why this plant is surviving high as compared to the other plant. So if there's a more survival, more reproduction chances. If there's a more reproduction, so it can transfer its gene or allele to the next generation. So that's why when you can see in this region, so all the land is covered by only this grass who can survive in the presence of zinc poison. So we're going to move to the next question here. Describe the method that the scientist could use to compare the population size of the grass species at 50 meter and 100 meter from the mine. So here you need to describe about the measuring method. So we can take a measuring tape or belt transect method used to measure the sampling area. So first we're going to take off a belt transect that will start from the zinc mine, and that will move to the 100 meter away from the zinc mine, and we can use a quadrate. So we will draw quadrate along the belt to count the number of the grass plant. And the third point, we repeat the experiment several times to count the grass plant under the quadrate. And the fourth point, you can write, calculate average percentage of the grass number in each area and compare these two regions from 50 meter away from the zinc mine and 100 meters away from a zinc mine. So here your one keyword is what you need to write a technique for measuring. For example, you're using measuring tape, that's your one keyword. Second, measuring method, that's a quadrate method, this is your second keyword. Third is repeat the experiment and calculate an average, that's your third keyword. And the fourth one, you're gonna compare, this is to the 50 meter away to the 100 meter away. So your results, that's your fourth point. So easily you can secure by using these keywords, the 4 points. We're gonna move to the next question here. So the farmer can keep their animal indoor or outdoor. The student uses this apparatus to compare the heat loss from animal kept indoor and outdoor. So he uses to cover the beaker to represent the animal who are present indoor and uncover the beaker, the animal who are present outdoor. So you can see that's one beaker with an equal amount of water and that contain a thermometer in that. So this is present under the cardboard cup. So that is the resemblance to the indoor, but about other is representing outdoor. Now in this experiment, what we did, the difference is what that is the cup under that's the beaker under the cardboard box and the beaker without the cardboard box. So that is our the value, independent value. What about our result is what the temperature change we are measuring. So that's our dependent value here in this experiment. Rest of everything we need to keep constant. For example, the concentration of the water, we need to keep constant. Thermometer, that's supposed to be constant. Volume of water, amount of water is supposed to be constant. External temperature should be constant. So these are the factors which can directly affect your results. So here the 200 centimeter cube of cold water, that is constant, measuring the temperature of water in each beaker, and cover one beaker with a cardboard and measure the temperature of water in another beaker. So you need to quickly understand this and proceed to the question, because that will waste the time. So next, the time in a minute, this is a given there, and mean temperature of the water is in Celsius, that's a given. So uncovered and at the 0 minute, that's gonna they both have the same temperature, 80 degrees Celsius. And then from that 80 degrees Celsius, after 30 minutes, we can see, so in uncovered, there is 40 degrees Celsius, while in covered, there is 44 degrees Celsius. So there's difference happen, mean more heat move away, more heat flows from uncovered. What about less heat flows from covered? But if you compare the difference between the covered and uncovered, there's not much big difference. Okay, give the dependent variable in this investigation. So as we discussed, the dependent variable is what your results, which depend on your apparatus. So that's why what you are changing, what you're investigating, your results are your dependent variable. What about the one part is covered, one part is uncovered? That is independent variable. So that is the temperature is our dependent variable. Second, we have give one reason why the student uses the same volume of water in each beaker. So why? Because the volume and surface area affect the heat flows. So that's why the student took the same volume of water to give a fair results. So anyone you can write to get fair results, or why? Because volume is affecting, or concentration or amount of water or surface area is affecting to the heat flows. So you can write any point, any valid point. So this value will be constant. The next question is to calculate the difference between the percentage decrease in temperature for uncovered beaker and the percentage decrease in temperature of covered beaker. So for example, if there's the percentage decrease, so the formula is initial value minus final value divided by initial value multiplying to the 100. You need to be careful if the examiner asking percentage decrease or percentage increase. Sometimes there's a percentage increase, so you will use opposite this formula, final value minus initial value divided by that's the final value multiplying to the 100. So what about here? We are using, this is percentage decrease. We are using this formula. So that's our initial value is 80 degrees Celsius minus final value is 40 degrees Celsius in covered divided by initial value, that is 80, and multiplying to the 100. So we're going to find the percentages 50%. In the same way, in uncovered part, so we are using, that's our final, and that's the initial value is 80 degrees Celsius minus final value is 44 divided by 80, that's the initial temperature, multiplying to the 100, and is 45%. Now here, the difference of these two percentages coming, that is 50% minus 45%. So this is coming 5% of difference. So that difference is not a large difference, but you need to find your answer by using this formula. The student conclude that it is better for farmer to keep their animal indoor. Now here you need to discuss and explain this conclusion. So you need to use that the supporting data for that. So indoor animal lose less heat. So more energy is available for growth or making meat or egg or milk. So indoor animals are protected from the predator and the diseases. So that's why it's better to keep the animal indoor. But examiner asking to discuss the conclusions. So that way, the examiner is not asking to write the benefits or the drawbacks. So you need to discuss both here. So it means this question, the keywords are divided into two parts. So one part is first, you need to write the advantages for animals supposed to be indoor. And the second part of against of that, while on other hand, there is less difference of heat loss. Why? Because there's not much difference between indoor and outdoor animal. So that's your one keyword. Keeping animal not only decrease their quality of life, but also the bound their mobility and eating variety of the food. So that's your writing drawbacks of that. Why? Because this is open-ended question. You need to write the positive point and the negative point, so then you can secure your full marks. Here, sometimes the student are writing only the positive point, so then that's might possible. You cannot get maximum marks here. So whenever the examiner asks, discuss this conclusion, so then in this way, you need to write a positive point here and the negative point of that. And if there's this experiment, you need to put their suggestion, so that will be more advisable to put suggestion for this question. Describe how the student could modify his investigations to find out if the animal body size affect heat loss. So use the beaker of a different volume. So we can modify this experiment. We can use the beaker of a different volume. So that way, if the beaker of different volume is representing the animals of the different size, and keep the beaker out of the box or keep the beaker under the box and measure the difference of temperature. So that way, these two differences are might possible. So if you want to investigate the animal of a body size, so we're going to take one small beaker, one large beaker, and one we put inside of the box and one outside of the box and measure which will lose more temperature. So that's the modification of experiment. We're going to proceed to the next part. The question number 6 is related to the coordination. Neuron transmit nerve impulses. The diagram show a neuron that is our motor neuron. Why? Because the cell body is present at the top of nerve cell. So, and we have dendrites which transmit the nerve impulses toward the cell body, and cell body contain nucleus and in the axon part that contain myelin sheet. These Sichuan cell, you can see, so these Sichuan cells containing myelin sheet here. Now, first question, this neuron is involved in withdrawal of reflex of a finger from a hot object. So the neuron transmit electrical impulses from central nervous system to the effector. So that's a function is given for this neuron, and draw a circle on the diagram to show the part of the neuron where impulses are transmitted to the effector. So you need to draw a circle. For example, the axon part, this contain the neurotransmitter vesicles. So these neurotransmitter vesicles, they're present in this region. So you can cover or draw a circle. So this circle should bound this last region. So this contain neurotransmitter. So you can secure 1 mark here. What is the name of this type of neuron? So name of this type of neuron, as we discussed before, that is motor neuron. Why? Because motor nerve sending the message from central nervous system to the effector. This is given. This is one example. So that is motor neuron. And second identification, you can see that cell body is present at top. That is motor neuron. What about we have the sensory neuron? The cell body is present in axonal region. So it's present in the center of axon. So the next question, explain the advantage of withdrawal of reflex when the finger touches to the hot object. So the reflex we define if our body part touch to the hot or the sharp object. So that way, without the involvement of brain, quickly we withdraw our body part from the part dangerous zone. So this will reduce the probability of the harm or impact of the danger. So fast withdrawal actions due to no brain involvement decrease the harming of sharp or hot object. So these are two keywords are here, phosphate trouble, number one, and this will decrease the harming impact of the sharp or hard object. The next question, some neurons do not have the myelin sheet. So these are non-myelinated nerves. So scientists investigated the impulses speed for neurons with the different diameter. So she does this for neuron with the myelin sheet and the neuron without the myelin sheet. For example, we're going to see that. So the neuron without the myelin sheet overall. So the diameter is by increase of diameter along x-axis, the diameter of neuron along x-axis is increasing, and impulse speed in meter per second is along y-axis. In overall result, we are finding if the diameter is increasing, so rate of or speed of the transmission of nerve impulses increasing. So in overall, that's the trend is, for example, if you're moving from 0 to 1 along x-axis to 2 and 3 micrometer, so if the diameter is increasing, so the speed of impulses is also increasing. So second, non-myelinated sheet has less speed as compared to the myelinated nerves. So that's the data we are getting from this graph. So which conclusion is supported by the graph? So A, the impulses are always faster in neuron with myelin sheet. So word always is wrong here. Why? Because you can see in the initial stages, this is the point in initial stages. So both speed is same. So that's why word always is wrong here. The neuron always have myelin sheet. So neuron always don't have myelin sheet. For example, this type of nerve is that, and this nerve do not contain myelin sheet. So that's why this is the wrong point. Why do the neuron have a myelin sheet? So why do neuron have a myelin sheet? So if there's a neuron is wider, so that has a myelin sheet. So that's not representing or describing the conclusion. So conclusion is overall word. For example, that's the nerve which do not contain a myelin sheet, but it has an equal size. So in that way, this is not representing or describing the graph. The graph is saying if the diameter is increasing, the speed of nerve impulse is increasing. So that's why here we can get idea. So wider the neuron, have faster the impulses. So by increasing the diameter, so the impulse speed is increasing. So D is our correct answer here. The next question is the neuron with the myelin sheet has the diameter is 1 micrometer. Use the graph to determine the speed of the nerve impulses in this neurons. So we're going to see that for this graph, you need to take the pencil, and by using your pencil, you need to draw a line here at 1 micrometer. So when you plot the line here of 1 micrometer, for example, if I'm going to proceed here, the 1 micrometer. So this is supposed to line you need to draw here. Okay. So, and then where it is intersecting with the myelin sheet, so you need to continue from here. For example, if it's intersecting this myelin sheet in this point, so this point will be your answer. Here, these are 2 boxes after the 4. So each small box is equal to 2. So this will be equal to, that's our number, 4.2, 4.4 here. Why? Because each small box is equal to 2. So that's our 4.4. So that will be our value here. So our answer, you can write here your answer. That is our 4.4 meter per second. We're going to proceed to the next question here. So a neuron in 90 centimeter long, calculate the time taken for impulses to travel along this neuron. So you can give your answer in a standard form. So in this way, the 90 centimeter long, so you need to convert this centimeter into meter by dividing 100. So 90 centimeter divided by 100, that's a 0.9 meter. And then the distance is what? That's our what? The total distance, total diameter is 90 divided by our 4.4, that is our velocity, is equal to time. So in that way, that's the diameter divided by total speed is equal to the time. So that will give us the value if you're gonna solve this question. So in that way, our answer will become what? That is the 2 into 10 raised to power minus 1. So we're gonna solve this. For example, that's the diameter divided by that's the total velocity. So that will give us the overall the time. So now you are measuring normally, you're going to take, this is the relationship. For example, you're going to see that the velocity that is equal to, so overall the distance that's moved by given time. So if you're going to measure about the time here, so for measurement of the given time, so that's is equal to what? The distance, the change of the distance or diameter divided by velocity. So we're going to put the distance at that here. So distance is what? 0.9. That's our meter, and divided by, you're taking velocity, and that's our 4.4 meter per second. Now this meter will cross with this meter, and if you're going to solve that, and that will become 0.20 second. If you're going to write it in the standard form, so then in this way the point will move in right in direction, and that will become 2 into 10 raised to power minus 1 second. Hope you got idea. We're going to proceed to the next question here. In the next question, here there is question number 7. The scientist investigated the effect of the salt concentration on the germination of the maize seed. So the batches of the seed were watered with a different concentration of the salt solutions. So count the number of the seed that germinated in each batch 12 days after sowing. So then they determine the percentage of the germination. So here we are finding the effect of salt on the seed germinations. So question number 1, describe how the scientist could tell if the maize seed had germinated. So they can find the radicle and plumule grow and split the seed coat. So whenever the seed will break, seed will start germinating. So the seed coat will be broken by the emerging radicle and plumule. Radicle is newly root and plumule is newly shoot. So the next question is, the scientist measure the germination after 12 days. So state the 2 other abiotic factors that the scientists need to control in their investigations. So here, all these type of the factor which can directly affect our result, we need to control. For example, the temperature or humidity or volume of solution or oxygen or light, pH value, carbon dioxide, any 2 points you can write, so they can affect our results and they can affect the growth of plant. Now here the tables show the scientist results. So concentration of the salt solution is a millimole. So millimole mean there's the 1,000 part of the mole. So that's the millimole. So percentage germination is given there. So now here the concentration of the salt solution is our independent variable. Why we are designing it. In this response, so the germination of the seed depend upon the concentration of the salt. So that's our dependent variable. So we're going to take independent variable always along x-axis, and we're going to take the dependent variable along y-axis. So that's whole data is given there, and you're supposed to use this data to plot your graph. Now the question is, plot the line graph to show that the effect of concentration of salt on the seed germination. So in this way, as I told you, for example, I already did that to save your time here. So you can see along x-axis, we put the concentration of salt solution in millimole. What about percentage germination along y-axis? That is why, because this is dependent variable. Then you need to select that your scale, like maximum, more than half of your graph should cover under the plotting area. And in this way, if you're going to take, for example, we're going to take the first value here. So you can see at the concentration of the salt solution is 0. So the percentage of seed germination is 89%. So we're going to see this one. For example, there's the first point is here. So I'm going to encircle this point. For example, concentration of salt is 0 here. And the percentage germination is what? That is 89%. So along y-axis, one small box is equal to 2. So that's why this will come in between of last box before the 90. And that's the same way I will plot this, the graph. And after plotting this graph, then you need to add these lines. So with the graph by joining. So I'm going to join these line here, for example, bit smoothly. You will have pencil, and that will be helpful for you to easily join these lines. So these lines should directly cross the point. So that will be more precise graph. If you can also use a scale with you. So that should be directly moving point to point. So line will be more smooth here. So here, that's your overall line. And you got in the base of this graph representations. So if the concentration of the soil is increasing, so the percentage of germination is decreasing. So the reason is what? Why? Because if there is a concentration of soil increase, so the outside there's the water potential is decreasing, so the less water will absorb by the seeds, and in this way the overall germination rate will decrease. So we're going to describe this graph first. So explain the effect of increasing the concentration of salt on the germinations. So overall result, you need to explain. Explain mean you need to describe the result, number 1, and you need to give a reason for gate, number 2. So sometimes the students are only describing and they're not giving reason. So in that way, they cannot get full marks. Second, you need to give a data, whatever the data is given there, you need to give a reference of this graph and the reason for that. For example, here by increasing the salt concentration, it decreased the germination rate. That's 1 mark. Now the reason is what? Because they decrease the water potential of the solution. So water potential of the solution is decreasing, and you can say the salt, by increasing the salt concentration, so the water potential is decreasing. So less water absorbed in the plant by osmosis. This is your 3rd marks. And low water in the plant reduce the growth because water is needed to activate enzyme to digest starch. So that way, you are describing the graph in a first sentence, and the last 3 sentences are for explanation of that relevant description. So that will be for 4 marks here. We're going to proceed to the next question here. A plant grow, as the plant grow, they produce root and stem. So compare the responses of root and stem to the gravity. So basically here, examiner asking the geotropism or gravitropic movement. So the root grow toward the gravity and give positive gravitropic response, while the stem is growing away from the gravity and it will give negative gravitropic response. So if the part of the plant is moving toward the stimulus, so that is a positive tropic response. If it is moving away from the stimulus, that is the negative, the tropic response. So that's here you need to write and describe the correct tropism of the root and stem. Compare the response of root and the stem to the light. When we talk about the light phototropism, so the root grow away from the light, so it gives negative phototropism response, while the stem grow toward the light and it gives the positive phototropic response. So that's why you need to describe here the correct responses regarding the stimulus of light. We're going to proceed to the next question here. And in the next question, there's a table data as given there. So the table show the data of one crop grow to the pesticide used in Norway in 2011. So the crop type is given there, vegetable, fruit, and meadows. So here in a vegetable, that's value is given there. The herbicide, fungicide, and insecticide. So percentage of the area sprayed with each type of pesticide. So these plant pesticide who protect the plant from any organism who's attacking on the plant, that is our pesticide. These are three types. Who are killing weeds, these are herbicide. Who are killing fungus, that's a fungicide. Who are killing insect, that is insecticide. Now here there is the question, state what is meant by the term pesticide. So the chemical used to kill the plant insect or the plant pest. So these are pesticide. Now here, next question, determine which crop had the largest area sprayed with a herbicide. We're going to see that where there's a largest area, so is it sprayed with a herbicide. So first, you're going to compare about the herbicide area. So in that way, if there's a largest area, so you can see the largest area is here for barley plant. So that is in a cereals barley plant, that is 1,450. So kilometer square of area is here as compared to the others. So that is the largest number. And in this largest number, we can find it's the percentage of area. So 91% of 1,450. So 91 divided by 100, this will become 0.91. Multiply into 1,450, our answer will become 1,319.5. And if you're going to write it in a rounding figure, so this rounding and figure, this will become 1,320 kilometer square. So the crop is barley, so you can secure 2 marks here. Suggest why the spring and winter wheat have different percentage of insecticide and applied to them. So why we are applying the different percentage of insecticide? The reason is what? Fewer insects in the winter season due to the low temperature. So the insects are ectotherms. They cannot maintain their body temperature. So that's why the most of the insect, either they move into the ground, some insect they move due to the torpor effect, or some die. So that's why the fewer insect in the winter due to the low temperature. So it need less insecticide here. So we're going to proceed to the next question. Discuss the different combination of pesticide applied to fruit and cereal crop. So now here you need to compare about different percentage. For example, in this data, here, if we are comparing about cereal and the fruit. So if we got a percentage, for example, I got an average of the herbicide. So average of herbicide in fruit is what? That is a 70 plus 56 divided by 2. This is 64. And in the same way, the average for the fungicide in fruit, that is 83.5%. And insecticide is 75%. If you're going to add this all average and find the average of the all percentages, that is becoming 74.1%. So this way, you can also use this data that will be more suitable. But overall, you can say overall in average, the percentage of the fruit is 70%, you can say, or 74%. In fruit, the all different type of pesticides are used. Second, you need to compare about herbicide. When we compare about herbicides, so you can see, and as compared to herbicides are used more in cereals like 91, 94, 98. So that's our what? As compared to the fruit, that's the 72 and 56. So that's just for 1 mark. Second, you need to give a reason why we are using herbicide more in cereals, because the cereal are small plant, they have to compete with weeds. So that's why we need a more herbicide. This is for 2 marks. Second, if we talk about fungicides, so we are using high in concentration in fruits. Why? Because fruit contain high sugar and they have more headache of the Pseudotropic fungus to decay. So that's why we need more spray on fruit. So third one, insecticide, there is a high in concentration for fruit. Why? Because there is a more insect headache on the fruit. So that's why we need more insecticide for fruits. So you need to represent these reasons here. So The first is around 70% with the same pattern of herbicide, fungicide, and insecticide are used in fruit. Herbicide in cereal used in higher than in fruit. That's a 1 point. Insecticide used in fruit crop higher than cereal crop. That's the second point. And the fungicide used higher in fruit crop because fungus highly decay the fruit due to the high sugar. So that way, you need to give a reason for that. For example, if the herbicide in cereal is used in higher than the fruit plant, why? Because you need to give a reason for this. These are smaller plant, and these smaller plant need and they have a more competition with the weeds. So to kill the weeds, we need a high amount of herbicide in cereal crop. So that's the correct answer. So you can use the symbol and you can use your own word to answer this question. But main keywords is that main comparison and their reason should be present. Explain an alternative to an insecticide that the farmer can use. So insecticide are source of pollution for atmosphere. So we can use alternative as word use of biological control. For example, some wasps are there or some type of insect who are killing other insect. So this is what that's our alternative for that. So they're eating larvae of the insect. So we can use as a biological control, use and predator insects such as we are using Encarsia, that's to eat the insect, or whitefly, which harm the crop. So that way, these are two methods we can use. So you can write your answer. We're going to move to the next question. Sickle cell anemia is a condition in which some of the person's red blood cell develop abnormally. So the diagram show the red blood cell from the healthy person and the red blood cell from the person with sickle cell anemia. So you can see the red blood cell in a healthy person, they are normal, circular in shape. What about the sickle cell? They are in a sickle shape and they are bent. Why? Because they have a less surface area. Now, what is impact? So the sickle shape, they contain one amino acid, which is hydrophobic in nature. So that's why their shape got damaged and they have a less surface area. So overall, the oxygen absorption rate decrease and they are less flexible and they're stuck in the capillaries. So these are disadvantages. Now question, the person with the sickle cell anemia often suffer a pain as some of their blood vessel. So they become blocked by the sickle cell. So suggest why the person blood vessel may be blocked, may become blocked. So the reason is what? The sickle shape red blood cell stick to each other and they block the blood vessels. Why? Because they are less flexible. They stick with each other and they block the blood vessel. So that's one problem which causes anemic situation. The people with the sickle cell anemia have a symptom of tiredness, joint pain, and they get worse if they are exposed to the cold temperature at high altitude. So just why these symptoms get worse. So the cold temperature reduce the blood flow, increase sickle cell effect. So if there's a cold temperature, if it's reducing to the blood flow to the body, this will increase the impact of sickle cell. Number one, or number two, low oxygen at a high altitude reduce the aerobic respirations. And in this result, if there's a low energy in the body, so that cause severe tiredness. So that's these 2 points you can write here. So here there is the cold temperature that reduces the blood flow. That's number 1 point here. And this will increase the sickle cell impact. Now the low oxygen at altitude, high altitude, this is your second point. And this impact you need to write that reduce the aerobic respiration. This is your third point. And this fourth point is that reduce the energy productions. So if these points, so you can easily secure 3 marks. Now, sickle cell anemia is caused by a single recessive allele. So state what is meant by recessive allele. So recessive allele cannot express in the presence of dominant allele. So if you have recessive or dominant recessive relationship, that's the allelic interactions. In this allelic interactions, so the recessive cannot express and stay hidden in the presence of dominant allele. So you can describe a man and a woman who are both heterozygous for sickle cell allele have a child. So calculate the probability that the child will be female and not have the sickle cell anemia. So if you see that the probability the child will be suffering by the sickle cell, like if the both parents are heterozygous, so the result in the next generation will be that will be 1:2:1. That will be our genetic result, while the phenotypic result will be 3:1. Mean 1 out of 4 will be suffering. But here examiner asking about the probability that will be normal. This is 3 out of 4. Mean the 3 will be normal out of 4. So our result will become 0.75 or 75%. Now we're going to see that the probability for female, why? Because the probability to the getting birth of female, that is 50%. So we're going to multiply it 0.5, multiply 0.75, and the probability for female will be 0.375. And that will be, if we multiply to get percentage, that will become 37.5%. So if you feel any problem for this, so you should go to understand what is the probability of the dominant and recessive allele in F2 generation if the parents are heterozygous. And second, reference what is the probability of getting male or female baby. So that's a 50%. You should watch that video. That will be more helpful for you. Sickle cell anemia is a more common in the countries where malaria is found. So this is because because having allele for sickle cell anemia can reduce the likelihood to develop malaria. So the people who are having the sickle cell allele, the malaria is caused by Plasmodium, and the Plasmodium is a protoctist which cannot survive in the red blood cell. So that's why the people who are heterozygous, so they were protected from malaria in the past history when the malaria was causing the pandemic across the world. So which type of organism caused malaria? That is protoctist. And this is Plasmodium, which causes malaria. Second, what is the name of the pigment found in the red blood cell? So name of the pigment is our hemoglobin, which is a globular protein in the red blood cell. That's responsible for transport of oxygen and carbon dioxide in the body. So we're going to proceed to the next question. Give a two difference in the structure between the red blood cell and a white blood cell. So red blood cell smaller than white blood cell. Number one, and the red blood cell have no nucleus, while the white blood cell have nucleus. So these two knowledge-based questions, so directly you can put your answer here. We're going to proceed to the next question here, and the next question is, the substance can move into and out of the cell by a variety of mechanisms. So explain the factor that affect the rate of movement of substance into and out of the cell. So you need to describe about what are these different factors which are increasing the permeability of a membrane. So the particle movement across the membrane increase by increasing the temperature. Why? Because by increasing the temperature, the kinetic energy will increase. And by increasing the kinetic energy, rate of diffusion and the movement across the membrane, osmosis is also increasing. So that's a 2 point here. We're going to proceed to the further 2 point. The difference in concentration across the membrane increase the rate of movement of facilitated diffusion. So if there is one side of the membrane, there is a high concentration molecule, and another side, there is a low concentration. So if there is a big difference in concentration gradient, so rate of diffusion will increase. That's the second and third point. Now, shorter the distance in thin layer, increase the diffusion. So if there's a membrane is more thin and the shorter distance between two medium, so rate of diffusion will increase. If you increase of the surface area, if there's a more large surface area, that will increase the diffusion rate. And if the size are smaller or particle size is smaller, rate of diffusion will be faster. So at the opposite point, you can also write that, like for example, if the particle size, particle charge or charged particle cannot pass through the cell membrane. So that's why if the particles are neutral, they can easily pass through, and this will increase. And increase of oxygen supply, increase respiration. And if there's a more respiration, more energy is available, so the particle can also move by active transport. So here you're supposed to write any 5 points from here to secure 5 marks. So there are multiple factors which affect the movement of the substance across the membrane. So the first, they are in blue in color. They are talking about diffusion and facilitated diffusion. What about this is our green in color? They're talking about active transport. So these two factors are directly affecting the movement of substance across the membrane. We're going to proceed to the next question and describe the difference between the diffusion and active transport. So the first difference, for example, diffusion is a passive movement in which does not need energy, while an active transport is an active movement which needs energy, like ATP. So that's your 2 marks here. So you need to describe the difference by defining the diffusion and active transport. Now, second 2 mark, the diffusion require concentration gradient because molecules move from higher concentrations to the lower concentration and diffusion. While in active transport, the molecules are moving from lower concentrations to higher concentration by use of energy. So that's a further 2 marks. So you can secure 4 marks here. Further extra marks, the diffusion can take place in a non-living system or anywhere, while in active transport, it's only possible in living membrane. Why? Because for active transport, we need energy. We're going to proceed to the next question here. The bread can be produced from the flour using yeast. So design and investigations to find out the changing the starch concentration of the flour cause the bread to expand more. So your answer should include the experimental detail to be written in the full sentences. So now here, you need to design an experiment. In every past paper question, there will be one question you need to design and an experiment. And in this experiment, the first you need to describe about your changing variable or different variable. Number 2, you need to describe your constant variable. Number 3, you need to describe your control variable or your dependent variable. And you need to describe a method to calculation of result. And last point, you need to describe what is the improvement in your experiment. So these components should be present in this style of question here. For example, here the question is about if the content of the starch is increasing in flour, so overall the dough produced in flour by the yeast is increasing, or the size of the flour will increase by the fermentation by the yeast. Now here, what we are changing, the changing is what the starch content, and that is independent variable. What the things which stay constant, that is what the amount of flour, time for flour, and the temperature and water of flour, so that everything should stay constant. And even the beaker or the utensil in the flour is present, that's constant. So, and the fourth point further is what is independent variable, what you're identifying, and that is the height of or size or volume of the floor, which will increase. So that's your dependent variable. And the last point, your improvement, you need to explain that. So this is that's our sample for writing the explanation for this question here. So I'm gonna complete that sample here. So first step, we need to write prepare 3 samples of flour of 100 grams each. Now you can see that the 3 samples contain the same mass of flour or same amount of flour. So that's your 1 point. That's the change variable. Now sample A contain 10% starch, sample B contain 20% starch, sample C contain 30% starch. So that's one. There's 2 points are given here. So first I'm giving the change or variable, and second, the amount of flour is same. Next, label 3 equal size of beaker with A, B, C, and put each sample in correct beaker. So for example, the 10% will go to the A, and 20% will go to the B, and 30% will go to the beaker C. And here, more important thing, all beakers are equal size. So that's your second key point of a constant. Now further, add 2 grams of yeast in each sample. So this is your further another third constant value is coming. So the concentration of yeast is supposed to be constant for each sample. For example, if I'm writing 2 grams of yeast in each sample. So each sample is your keyword. Now, the same volume of water is added to make paste. So we are making paste of this flour, but we need to add the same amount of water in that. So same amount of water is your fourth constant. So you need to write that and keep each temperature at the same temperature for 5 hours. So you can see in this sentence here, same temperature, that's a one constant value, and the 5 hour, the time is also constant. Next, we have measure the volume of each flour sample by the scale of the beaker and calculate the percentage increase. That's recording the result method. So this is for 1 mark, how you're recording your research. And next mark is repeat experiment with each sample 3 times and calculate your average, the rise of flour. So that's repeat your experiment each time and calculate your average. This is your last mark. So you can easily secure 6 marks here. And further extra point, you can write, record the data in the table and compare the data collected from the different samples. So that way, if you're writing your answer in this way, so you can easily secure your marks. For example, here, that's our easily, you can secure here the sample here, that's our variable, 1 mark is here. And this variable sample explaining method, that's our 2nd mark is here. Further, this is what you use a constant amount of yeast here. That's the 3rd mark is here. Same volume of water. There's a 4th mark is here. Then you keep the temperature, and then this is going to be a 5th mark is here, and equal temperature and same time is given to that. Now measure the volume. That's a method is given there. This is our 6 marks is completed, and repeat the experiment, and you can secure that extra marks here. So that's our overall 6 marks you can easily secure for this question here. So hopefully you got idea. If you did not understand any questions, so you can put that question, or you can put your questions in the comment box. So I'll try to my best to answer your questions. Thank you. Thank you very much.